All right, you all know the drill by now. It's the post game of the post game, and this is a little bit later than usual, 12:10 a.m. Eastern here on Sunday, January 5th. Welcome inside the channel. I'm Bobby Trosset, and as always, this is where I bring you Baltimore sports and beyond. The Ravens 35-10 winners. It caps the 2024-2025 NFL regular season. Baltimore finishes 12-5, secures the AFC North division title for a second consecutive year. They are, of course, postseason bound, and they will have the 3 seed. And, of course, what does that mean for playoff seeding and implications going into next weekend? And it is wild card weekend, Saturday through Monday coming up next week. Well, what we know is here are the scenarios with the Steelers losing to Cincinnati at home, by the way, and Pittsburgh's going nowhere fast. They've got one and done written all over them. With them losing, the Ravens will face the Steelers if the Chargers beat the Raiders tomorrow, or the Chargers if they lose to the Raiders. So a Chargers win means Ravens Steelers part 3. A Chargers loss means Ravens Chargers part 2. So that is what things are looking like right now in terms of the scenarios heading into wild card weekend. It's either going to be Jim Harbaugh and a rematch of the Harbaugh Bowl, or it'll be Mike Tomlin and, of course, round 3 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are reeling right now. Their passing game is disastrous. George Pickens cannot hold on to the football. They're not a disciplined team right now. Mike Tomlin's dealing with clock management criticisms from around the league and from around the media landscape. And the Steelers are heading in one direction, and the Ravens appear, obviously, to be heading in another. But the reality is, when it's Pittsburgh, Baltimore, you just don't know what's going to happen. They split their season series, of course, this year, as we know. The most AFC North titles since 2010 belong to the Ravens and John Harbaugh with 6 of them over the last 15 years. Mike Tomlin and the Steelers with 5. Joe Burrow and the Bengals with 4. Cleveland, 0 over the last 15 years. And obviously, they're probably going to enter into rebuild mode yet again. There's a lot of conversation, obviously, surrounding which team you'd rather face if you're the Ravens. To me, it's the Chargers, and it's not particularly close. I think they match up better against them. And again, when you bring an in-division kind of atmosphere into the postseason, that comes with a wild card, which is why they call it wild card weekend. And you just never know. It is so uncanny. It gets obscure at times. It gets unpredictable and typically funky, especially when we're talking about Ravens Steelers. So that is what we're watching going into tomorrow. And I think we'll all probably be watching the Chargers Raiders game. What time does that kick off at? It's a 4:25 kick. And then, of course, all of Cincinnati will be watching the Chiefs and the Broncos also at 4:25. That is in Denver, in a game that Kansas City will be riding with Carson Wentz and a number of other backups, in a game that obviously Cincinnati will be watching closely. The Bengals have ripped off 5 straight wins. They've been playing playoff football for what feels like months now. But mathematically, there is still a path for the Bengals to clinch a postseason berth. And, of course, that 7th and final overall seed in terms of the AFC playoff picture. Lamar Jackson, 7th NFL regular season now complete. And he put the finishing touches on his final closing argument here for MV3. And look who endorsed him tonight, Shannon Sharpe. Big prominent voice, of course, in NFL circles. Tweeted out in-game, only 2 hours into the game, matter of fact, give that man his MVP. 41 touchdown passes, 4 picks, 900-plus rushing yards. We'll get into all the specifics in just a second. Second highest passer rating in NFL history, which that was at the time, and their division champs. Lamar Jackson has earned MVP this season. Go in your closet and debate yourself. Hashtag Browns Ravens. Hashtag NFL Saturday Football. That from Shannon Sharpe. So let's get into the numbers, because more and more. I don't believe he's an MVP voter unless he wasn't on last year's list of, I think, 40 or 50 folks that get that honor. But if he is this year, obviously he's just revealed where he appears to be heading. Dan Orlovsky, who was on the call tonight for ESPN, don't know if he's wavered at all. Clearly, he's been a Josh Allen advocate in recent weeks, wanting to declare it over after 15 weeks. I know Mike Florio is on record for voting Lamar. I know Mina Kimes seems to be heading in that direction, and several others. Lamar's final numbers, regular season-wise this year, 4,172 passing yards, 915 rushing yards. That's over 5,000 total yards to be exact in total. First quarterback ever to pass for 4,000 plus and run for 800 plus. First ever. This is transformative stuff from Lamar. Great graphic put together by Sarah. 41 passing touchdowns to 4 picks. It's the best interception rate in NFL history among quarterbacks with 40-plus passing touchdowns. 45 total TDs and a passer rating of 119.6. He needed 138.6 today to break Aaron Rodgers' single-season mark ever in NFL history. But when you get an early Zay Flowers drop, you overthrow Mark Andrews when he was wide open, you kind of knew that Aaron's record was going to be safe early in this game. Certainly doesn't take away whatsoever from his candidacy. Look at the list that he's on right now, joining Aaron Rodgers, like I mentioned, Peyton Manning, and Nick Foles back in 2013 as the best passer rating in a single season in NFL history. 119.6. Elite category after category after category after category is where Lamar finds himself time and time again. And so here we have it. This was prior to Lamar. He had obviously more work prior to these statistics being compiled. So just keep that in mind. Like I just showed you the other graphic. He's got 4,172 passing yards at the time of this graphic. In game, he had 4,114. But for the most part, this is pretty much up to date. And Lamar beats Josh, who is the primary candidate in a lot of people's minds, particularly the sports books, for this year's MVP. Lamar's got him in completion percentage. Lamar's got him by a sizable margin in passing yards. Now, Buffalo still have it, obviously has to play, and they'll have the Patriots coming up tomorrow in New England. Lamar finishes with a significant amount more of passing touchdowns, including fewer interceptions by 2, and almost doubles Josh in rushing yards. Now, Josh has him covered, obviously, in rushing touchdowns, but we know who's used in the red zone in Baltimore. It's a combination of Mark Andrews and, of course, Derrick Henry, who's enjoying a career year in year 1 with Baltimore. We'll get to him in just a second. I promise you that. So Shannon Sharpe is riding this bandwagon. RG3 had a whole lot to say. We'll get to his thoughts in just a bit, particularly when it comes to the Derrick Henry component and why some on the national level appear to be taking away from Lamar's candidacy simply due to Derrick's presence in his backfield, even though it's been clear that given the history, given the significance of his season at 31 today, by the way, happy birthday to Derrick Henry. Technically, we're after midnight here on the 5th, so yesterday. But that has everything to do with Lamar. He just consistently makes those around him better, time and time again. And we're going to get into some of that in just a bit. But his pass catchers had a nice day. Zay Flowers was heading in that direction before he went down with a knee injury. Luckily, it did not appear to be a non-contact injury. And Ian Rappaport all but confirms that in this tweet right here. He is believed to have suffered a sprain, has Zay Flowers. It's not considered a major injury, though there is a real chance he misses next week. So, wild card weekend, potentially against Pittsburgh or the Chargers, the Ravens might be without their top wide receiver. Now, when he went down in the first half, Rashad Bateman stepped up. He finished with a game-high 76 receiving yards, 5 catches. He did score a touchdown, his 9th of the season. He had 4 combined during his first 3 seasons, a lot of that due to injury and lack of availability. He was targeted 8 times. I thought Mark Andrews had a hell of a game as well. The numbers don't pop off the page at you, 4 for 54 and a touchdown. But Mark continues to stack games. So much so, listen to the numbers. 6 consecutive with a touchdown for Mark. That's a new franchise record and a personal best. And he's had some hell of a seasons so far as a Raven. 11 touchdown receptions in total for a single season. That is a personal best for number 89. So while the receiving yards are down considerably from what you're used to with Mark, a lot of that has to do with the slow start. A lot of that has to do with the offensive balance that this team has. And ultimately, he has not let that get in the way from his productivity at all, really, over the last 10 weeks. I thought Isaiah Likely had a couple big catches for the Ravens today. I thought Pat Ricard had an awesome catch across his body in the red zone. You know, the ball doesn't come his way often, so any chance that he can corral it, that's a big deal. What's my confidence if Zay Flowers can't go in the wild card weekend? Confidence remains the same. This is the most playmaking ability that Lamar has had at his disposal in his entire career. And while Zay brings an element of speed, explosiveness, yak, and an infectious energy that's hard to replicate, I feel confident that this team can find its way past wild card weekend without Zay, giving him another extra week to prepare to be available in the divisional round, which is likely going to be a trip to Buffalo in mid-January. And I'm telling you right now, you don't need to be from upstate New York the way that I am originally to know what Western New York's going to be like this month. I just got back from Syracuse. I just got back from the Albany area. It is brick up there. You were out there at the stadium today in Baltimore with that 12-degree wind chill? Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more severe in Western New York. And we know that Lamar has had his struggles in that kind of weather before. Just go back and look at the divisional round game between Buffalo and Baltimore in the 2020 season. January of 2021. It did not end well for anybody that had allegiances to the Ravens that day. So that's what I think this is heading towards. Potentially Pittsburgh next weekend, a road trip to Buffalo, followed by, you already know who you got to go through in order to book your tickets to New Orleans. And until somebody says otherwise, I'm thinking that's probably going to be the Kansas City Chiefs unless we have a postseason upset for the ages. And I wouldn't rule that out given how beatable they have looked at times this year. Then again, they've only been beaten once. By who? Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, the same exact team that the Ravens all out thumped on Sunday Night Football earlier in the month of September, which, of course, we all remember. Tonight's live stream is brought to you by my friends at Primary Residential Mortgage, and I have been working with PRMI for well over a year now. If you are in the home buying process, I would love for you to consider taking advantage of what Primary Residential Mortgage is offering to you as a Bobby Baltimore subscriber. I just had some folks come up to me at the pregame show tailgate today and say how fired up they are to kickstart 2025 with me, with my sponsor, and maybe this is the right fit for you as well. You can turn your tax refund, being that we're coming up on tax season, into a new home. Primary Residential Mortgage has a wide variety of loans requiring little to no down payment. Your tax refund could cover it all. Maybe you use it to cover closing costs. Maybe you pay down existing debt. Maybe you pay for some upgrades to your existing home to increase its value. Here's the guarantee. As a Bobby Baltimore subscriber, this is what you're eligible for. Primary Residential Mortgage is going to cover your closing costs up to $750, and this is only available for applications that are submitted by February 9th. That's next month, February 9th. One of you literally just took advantage of this within the last couple of weeks and told me about it, which I'm fired up about. So people are actively taking advantage of this incentive. I hope you'll consider doing so as well. You can apply through the PRMI Mid-Atlantic website today. You can mention my name throughout your application process, and you can get started by visiting the show notes where there is a direct link to Primary Residential Mortgage at the top of this video description. Over 700 of you joining me late night, and this is one of my later streams for sure. I appreciate you guys for being here. Let's get to some, I have one super chat as well. Mike M, what's up, Mike? Bobby with the late night stream, got my lady feeling neglected, even though I was one of the main people requesting one. You got a couch for the boy. I got a couch right in front of me. Matter of fact, that thing pulls out, Mike. You can make yourself nice and comfortable over there. Hopefully your lady, though, your missus, not going to come calling at me for distracting you late night. But I appreciate the support. You never miss a show, my man. I love the budding friendship that you and Manny got as well. Well, someone who's constantly, really forever, since becoming his teammate, been pounding the table for Lamar Jackson is Robert Griffin III. I'll tell you what, let's just do a quick little reset. I see everybody is chilling here late night. Chris is still awake, even though she's been trying to go to bed for what feels like hours. Mike's trying to figure out what brick means. Brick titty cold. That's what we say up in upstate. David Smith in the building saying Lamar's his MVP. Just a bit outside, says Bobby After Dark. No wine. No wine tonight. I'll probably put myself to sleep just given how crazy these last few days. What I say Junior wants to know if I've addressed the turtleneck yet. It's turtleneck season. It's turtleneck season. Let's get it. Got a bunch of these things. Let's keep that thing coming. So, as I was saying, nearly 18 minutes into tonight's live stream. Let's have this conversation right now. Someone who has always gone out of his way to pound the table, whether it's Lamar Jackson's MVP candidacy, whether it's the way that he's viewed throughout sports media, whether it's the way that he's portrayed, whatever it is, Robert Griffin III, his former backup quarterback, always seems to be there backing up his guy. He backed him up as a player and still backing him up as a friend. And he tweeted out earlier, stop using Derrick Henry to discredit Lamar Jackson. Henry got hit in the backfield on 50% of his runs last year. This year, it's down to 39%. He has more than doubled his yards before contact, and it's because of Lamar's influence. Watch the dang tape, and you will see how often linebackers, safeties, and defensive linemen are out of their gap and often chasing Lamar on under center runs, shotgun runs, and zone read looks. This has been the easiest 1,921 yards Derrick Henry has ever run for in his career. Lamar and Derrick are the match made in heaven. I predicted they would be in the offseason. They complement each other and are great teammates. Lamar has the second highest passer rating in NFL history with 41 passing touchdowns and won the AFC North. He should be the NFL MVP. That from RG3. Not only a glowing endorsement of Lamar, but also kind of taking direct aim at some of those in the national spotlight who have tried to take away from Lamar's MVP candidacy because of Derrick Henry's presence. Now, the King was having a little bit of fun in the X-Spear postgame. Obviously doesn't do a whole lot of tweeting and typically keeps it pretty businesslike when he's behind the mic. He quote tweets his fellow Heisman brother, RG3, in that tweet that I just read aloud to you, and said, first of all, bruh, spell my name right, LOL. RG3 went with D-E-R-E-K. Of course, it's D-E-R-R-I-C-K. And he added on that we scream in MV3 over this way, which he's done early and often since it became a thing. Consistently ringing that bell on behalf of Lamar Jackson. And how could you not? It has been a tremendous year for the King. RG3 chimes back. Fixed it, my Heisman brother. It should be MV3 everywhere. Tired of the lames on national TV. trying to pin y'all against each other. So perhaps RG3 taking a little bit of direct aim right here against some of his former colleagues, whether it be at ESPN or any other national network, who have been relentless when it comes to almost downplaying the significance of what Lamar has accomplished this year because of Derrick's presence, which, as we all know and as we've covered thoroughly in recent weeks, is not fair and or accurate. Both of these guys complement one another, but Lamar's presence, the way that defensive coordinators have to account for his abilities, has opened up all kinds of opportunities for Derrick to have a stellar season at age 31. He totaled 138 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns tonight against Cleveland. He generated plus 87 rushing yards over expected. He finishes his first season in Baltimore with a plus 562 RYOE, which again is rushing yards over expected. That's his most in a season since 2018 and the most in the NFL entering the rest of week 18. That is courtesy of Next Gen Stats, but that only tells part of the picture. We've talked about the Lamar numbers through and through and where he finishes across the board. But I'm telling you right now, that only tells part of the story. He has boosted Derrick Henry. 1,921 rushing yards for the King is the second most of his career. 16 rushing touchdowns is tied for the second most in his career. And 18 total touchdowns is tied for the most in his career. Derrick was a sheer force. And at times, especially in the first half of the season, it kind of felt like the Ravens were holding him back a little bit. And so for him to almost flirt with 2,000 rushing yards at 31 in year one with Baltimore and another year of his contract coming up in 2025 in Baltimore, yeah, you get the sense that we have not seen the last of this duo or maybe the ceiling of what this duo could end up becoming. And my, oh my, do they have two closers? The ultimate closer? Perhaps that's the King. PFF compiled his numbers in the second half and overtime, and that's games this season and where he ranks league-wide. He's second in rushing yards with 1,182. Keep in mind, he finished with 1921. So this is the type of impact that he's had in crunch time. He finished first in yards after contact with 746. He finished tied for first with 8 rushing touchdowns. He finished first in first downs with 55. He finished first in missed tackles forced, no surprise, with 56. And second in yards per carry with 6.6. Again, these are numbers compiled in closer status. When Derrick is at his best, it's when games are on the line. It's when games are won and lost. It's in overtime frames. Like the first game against Cincy when he broke out that big run and pushed the Ravens to victory on the road. It's in the second half when maybe, just maybe, on a night like tonight, when he only had 8 rushing yards in the first half, he goes for, oh, by the way, 130 in the second half. He's hungry for a postseason run. He's hungry for a Super Bowl championship. And the Ravens have been feeding him of late. And that's exactly what they need to continue to do as January postseason arrives. January football is here. January postseason is a week away. Super chat from Josh Hoffman. What's up, Josh? Appreciate the super chat. I'm concerned today. We saw our usual playoff offense in the first half. Didn't run Henry, not just drop balls, but balls popping into the air for possible interceptions. Fourth down fails, LJ and Andrews off their timing. And think about how many defensive pieces for Cleveland were down. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Josh. The early drop by Zay was crucial. the overthrow to Mark that you reference, and just sort of a sloppiness. Tonight, they were penalized 10 times for 83 yards. That's the type of stuff that I'm not saying I'm expecting a Pittsburgh or Los Angeles upset coming up next weekend, but you keep them in games early like that, and you get out of your rhythm and you don't find yourself in January, much like they've done in the past, and all of a sudden it becomes a psychological thing. Not a world you want to live in whatsoever. What up, Mike? Get a gold chain and they won't tell you ish. I do have a gold chain underneath me. St. Christopher. Should have pulled that out, but this thing is skin tight right here. Brandon Humble writes, it don't matter who we play in the wild card. If we're going to reach the promised land, we all want the smoke. Feed the king, and we should be fine. Like I said, though, I get it. Pittsburgh is leaking oil. They've lost 4 straight games. And I'm looking at a statistic up on the screen right now. 4th straight game scoring 17 points or fewer. So they're not putting up points. They're not moving the ball. Their passing attack scares no one. But again, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And stranger things have happened. Joe Jenkins writes, everyone be safe in the snowstorm. I'm from Baltimore, but now live in Bedford, Indiana. We're getting 10 to 18. Wow. So snow and ice by noon on Monday. Go Ravens. Joe, stay safe out there. Same thing in upstate New York. I've been checking in with my mom and whatnot. There is definitely, there's some big storms coming in over the course of the next couple of days. So hopefully you and yours are taking care of yourselves. I appreciate you guys for being here. Over 1,000 of you concurrently watching right now between X or Twitter and YouTube. So thanks for being here. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. And how about the Rook? Putting the icing on the cake of what's been a stellar first season in the NFL. Ravens first rounder back in April out of Clemson, Nate Wiggins, hauled in his first career interception, and it goes down as a pick 6. At 21 years old, he became the youngest Raven to record a pick 6. And according to ESPN stats and info, the last time a Ravens rookie had one in a game, you got to go back to October 2006 in New Orleans. In that game, 2 Ravens rookies recorded pick 6s, DeJuan Landry and Ronnie Prude. So very random statistics right there. But that took place tonight. I thought Marlon Humphrey played a hell of a game. He continues to put together an all-pro caliber season, or he did put together an all-pro caliber season. Part of me is so shocked that the regular season's over. I mean, every single year it seems as if the NFL just blinks and all of a sudden you're boat racing to the postseason. And so here we are. I thought Brandon Stevens struggled a little bit tonight. I expect him to be a highly coveted target in terms of offensive game planning moving forward. So I want to see how he responds to that and how his ball skills are. And obviously, ball awareness will be at the top of mind when it comes to Brandon Stevens in the postseason. But the Ravens secondary, all things considered, is in a great place entering the postseason. And you feel good about the fact that Kyle Hamilton went back into the game after what looked to be a little bit of a stinger tonight. You know, the kind of pride you're going to get from Darius Washington. I'm just looking at this highlight right now on ESPN with Nate Wiggins jumping that route in the first half in the opening quarter against Bailey Zappi. I mean, that was just great intuition, great anticipation. And you know he's getting back into the house with that 4.28 speed in a hurry. Another super chats come in from my guy Tongsley. What's up, Tong? Last year we panicked when the offensive line struggled. Tonight we didn't, so that's an improvement. Have faith. Don't freak out. We finished strong despite a bad first half, and it was an ugly first half. That offensive line was getting worked. Now, Patrick McCary was, not himself tonight, and he didn't play very much, which meant that they went with a rotation at left guard because Patrick was so sick. They went with Voorhees. They gave Ben Cleveland some looks. So there was a little bit of instability there along the line, but that has to be an area, obviously, that the Ravens have to overcome because, week in and week out, once wild card weekend begins, elite defensive fronts they're going to have to find a way to get past elite defensive fronts, or else you're not going to get to where you want to go. And that's oftentimes what we would say in the offseason, right? You're not going to be able to get where you want to go, speaking of that, with no pass rush. Well, guess what? The Ravens are projected to finish second league-wide in total sacks after taking last year's trifecta defensively for the first time in NFL history, right? Points allowed, takeaways, and sacks. They led in every single category. Well, this year, thanks to the likes of Kyle Van Noy and Odafe Oweh, who both have hit the double-digit category, Ravens find themselves in awfully productive company when it comes to pass rush. And when KVN tallied his 12.5 sacks tonight, that triggered a $250,000 incentive. So number 53 was active. He was getting after it. You could just tell he was money hungry. I loved his post-game press conference as well. He went out of his way to shout out the late Joe D, the late Jacoby Jones. I thought it was really touching. And KVN continues to be this source of veteran savvy and a certain level of relentlessness and experience, of course, on the edge. And he's got this motor as he continues to play with a chip on his shoulder, having been written off just a couple years ago. And since, guys tallied over 30 friggin' sacks with Baltimore. And Eric DeCosta continues to look so dang smart for bringing him in on such a team-friendly deal. I know we're talking outside linebackers here, but while we are on the topic of linebackers, quietly tonight, Roquan Smith became the youngest player in NFL history to reach 1,000 career tackles. He finished with a game-high 10, 3 of which were solo. And how about his teammate Odafe Oweh? Number 99 for the first time in his career in year 4, hits the double-digit sack number. And, of course, as I tweeted out here, a year after losing Jadeveon Clowney in free agency and all the production that walked out the door with him, Baltimore's pass rush hasn't blinked. It did not blink. And you got to give a ton of credit to the players, of course, first and foremost. But I will always go out of my way to give some credit to Chuck Smith, their outside linebackers coach, a.k.a. Dr. Rush. Dr. Big Man. Michael Pierce, first career interception tonight to put a bow on this one in the fourth quarter. And this place freaking erupted when he took that thing down for a double kneel. Number 58 so often does things that are hard to measure, that you won't necessarily see pop off the page at you in box scores. But MP is a run stuffer specialist. He is a cog. Most importantly, he brings a consistent interior pass rush presence to this team. And I've always liked Mike. He's back with for a second stint in Baltimore now the last couple of years. He was banged up last year. You already know he enjoyed the moment tonight.
Number 6, so there's a long history of turning big guy interceptions and fumbles and all that stuff into memes. So at the risk of ruining a career play like that for myself, it's time to go home. So the bus was out of gas. We good. I'm glad I caught it, more importantly. I'm going to be honest. I don't want to curse on TV, but S word. You know what I'm saying? I say, oh, my God, he really threw this football. So, no, I got fairly decent hands. I'm glad I caught it. And like I said, Coach preached smart football. And like I said, I don't want to end up on a meme on Instagram, my wife, and everybody laughing at me. So we did the right thing. We got down and kept it moving.
He's such a likable guy, man. Good for him. That's such an awesome moment. Everybody was losing their minds on the Baltimore sideline. John Harbaugh included, who actually said that that's what they teach in the meeting rooms. Get down, big fella. As much as there was daylight in front of him, get down. Celebrate the accomplishment. And, of course, he's all over everywhere right now. You know who probably should be all over everywhere right now, and yet I'm not seeing enough love for, is Zach Orr. Terrence, his brother, tweeting out a nice message tonight. Congrats to my little brother on winning the division. in his first year as defensive coordinator. Kings of the North, your faith and work ethic never wavered. On to the playoffs. Hashtag Kings of the North. Hashtag Ravens flock. Hashtag playoffs. 32-year-old Zach Orr, one of the youngest, if not the youngest, defensive coordinators across the league, and a player whose career was obviously cut far too short due to injury. Zach had a lot of noise around him. He had a spotlight on him just a mere couple months ago. From week 10 on, this is a group that made key personnel adjustments, that righted a lot of their wrongs, and most importantly, fixed the pass defense and started to dwindle and decrease the amount of big-time plays that they were giving up. And I think Zach Orr, Dean Pease, their entire staff, and of course the players deserve a massive salute for this in-season turnaround. This is a group that has single-handedly, by the way, how about these numbers that I compiled after the game? The Ravens had a very late Week 14 bye, as you guys all know. Week 14. And coming out of the bye, having lost to Philadelphia, of course, the week prior, I wasn't all that confident, nor was Sarah, that this team could finish on a note where 4-0 unbeaten into the postseason would have been a likely expectation. Well, that's exactly what they did. And while doing so, they won by a combined margin against opponents, 135-43. 43 points allowed by Zach Orr's group over the last 4 weeks. And granted, 2 of those games were what? The Giants and the Steelers? I don't care. I really don't care. Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. You can throw out all the statistics and metrics when they meet Baltimore and when Baltimore meets them. And I get it. The Giants have a really tough time putting up points as well. And Daniel Jones was obviously not under center for them, having been cut. But I'm telling you right now, this is a group that in all 3 phases is playing like it's more than capable of getting to New Orleans this year. I know Jimmy Smith certainly feels that way. He told me that much during today's show on the pregame side of things. That will be dropping, by the way, 35-minute conversation, a tell-all Jimmy Smith conversation tomorrow at noon Eastern, right here on the channel. I look forward to sharing that with you. But there were a ton of celebrations to be had. I saw the running backs, Derrick, Rasheen, Keaton, all enjoying a post-game cigar. And here's key members of the defense with their hats and T-shirts. Of course, Chuck Smith down there in the bottom left. Tavius Robinson, I thought, had a solid season, as did so many members down the stretch of this Ravens defense. How about this, by the way? The 33rd team put this together. Nate Wiggins never allowed a touchdown throughout his entire rookie season, but he scored one tonight. That's a dude who the Ravens hit on in the first round. Defensive players in the first round, Kyle Hamilton and Nate Wiggins come to mind in recent years. That is clean living. And all I got to say is the fact that the Ravens are sitting in this position right now, having come from behind and snatched this division from the Pittsburgh Steelers, when a month ago, I wasn't sure if, and Mike, my prediction was 3-1. I thought that they were either going to lose to Houston or Pittsburgh. And obviously they took care of business in both categories. And as a result, AFC North title's theirs, the 3 seed is theirs, and now they await their opponent. As I've mentioned a couple times now, it's either the Chargers and a rematch of the Harbaugh Bowl, or of course, round 3 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. More super chats have come in. I appreciate you guys for being with me. Technically this morning, it's 12:49 a.m. Eastern here on the East Coast. Ocean says, for the playoffs, give the ball to number 22 all day. Good things happen when Derrick's involved, for sure. Joe Jenkins writes, happy for Nate. Waited all season for his first interception. He certainly did. 17 games, comes in the first quarter against Bailey Zappi on a beautifully timed jump route. SoFly B. Moore says, I'm feeling super confident in this team. We got to exercise finally the Chiefs demon that's haunted us for years, Bobby B. No question. You know they're going to be there. I would be stunned if the Ravens aren't forced, when it's all said and done, to go through Arrowhead if they want to get to where they want to go. And that is, of course, this year down in New Orleans. My flights are booked. I'll be working Radio Row there this year, and I'm fired up about that. I tell you that right now. I know that. Over 1,000 of you joining me in this late night form. Please like the video on your way in. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when I'm dropping my daily live content. And to be quite honest with you, since it is 12:50 and coming up on 1 a.m., I'm going to bounce and call it quits here early and not go the full hour. I hope you'll not hang it over my head. If you'd like to donate to the channel, you can do so through Venmo or Cash App. You can like this video, please. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell. And as always, YouTube Super Chat features are obviously much appreciated. You guys are much appreciated. And for those of you who are just tuning in, like Purple City 410, if you rewind a little bit, I gave you a Zay Flowers update as reported by Ian Rappaport, who is saying that it's a knee sprain and he will likely miss next week. Mike M writes, Tila called the Nate interception today. What's in that cup? Tila called that? Okay, Tila. And this is water right here. I know you want that late night me. No wine. I got up this morning and drove back from upstate New York, so I'm absolutely shot, to be honest with you. Greg from Long Beach says, I'm happy the defense and special teams has gotten their shit together. My nerves are calm these games. I miss B-more, but not the hard winters. Yeah. It's funny. Like, I never view Baltimore as a hard winter just because of my upstate roots and blood. But it was pretty cold out there today at the pregame show, and I was in a freaking tent. Some other things that just to consider. The Ravens hit 4,000 passing yards and 3,000 rushing yards this season. They're the first team in NFL history to reach both of those marks. Unbelievable. Ronnie Stanley played in his 17th game of the season today. It marks the first time in his career that he did not miss one regular season game, so that's a big deal. He took a big pay cut this offseason. He will be a pending free agent, and that's obviously a player that you would think the Ravens would want to extend because of how much growth he's shown this year, and most importantly, the stability. I thought from a special teams perspective, it was awesome to see Keaton Mitchell pop with a 47-yard return. He's got an incredible amount of burst, and he's got great vision as well. He's got great field vision. I would love to see him be incorporated into more special teams opportunities later on throughout this month. Sanusi Kane continues to flash and pop in special teams. He's a thumper. And Jordan Stout really struggled tonight and has in recent weeks from a punting perspective. And that is big, obviously, when it comes to flipping the field and just field position in general. And that's something that I hope does not come back to bite them like Justin Tucker has, obviously, throughout much of this year. We covered a bunch of other notes and nuggets and analysis in our Vault post-game show with Sarah. I think we almost went 2 hours. So I would love for you guys to go check that out if you haven't already done so. And on your way out, please like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'm sure I'll do some live content tomorrow. The Ravens are awaiting their opponent, and we will know by the end of tomorrow who they will host as a 3 seed, which will be the 6th seed, coming up wild card weekend next week. I look forward to that. Thank you to Primary Residential Mortgage for the continued support and belief in this channel. Thanks to all of you for spending part of your either evenings, like Greg out west, or like those of you here in the East Coast, your mornings, your very early mornings with me. Thanks to my partner, Sarah Ellison, for a great week. And again, I appreciate you guys, as always, for dropping by the channel. I'll catch up with you soon. Talk to you.